Hello and welcome to the news at 7, where we get to the heart of the day's stories and communities across Scotland. Tonight, plans are announced to bring down NHS waiting times.
With clear outcomes, tangible improvements that we can and will deliver. Tangible improvements to make people's experience of the NHS in Scotland better.
We'll ask one GP what they make of the plans. Also tonight, too much fat and sugar, the state of children's diets across Scotland.
I think in Scotland we've got so many sort of pockets of deprivation.
When you do your food shop, 90% of it is your fruit veg costs.
We will have all the sport with Lewis, and Lewis, some unexpected news regarding one Premiership manager.
That's right, Amy. Yes, we will have more news on Motherwell's managerial departure, and I'm going to catch up with some of the Caledonia Gladiators women's basketball team who won their first major trophy yesterday.
We are looking forward to that. Hello, I'm Amy Irons and welcome to the news at 7. Let's look at something which is affecting a lot of us across the country at the moment, and that's NHS waiting times. Well, today First Minister John Swinney set out his plans for bringing them down. He said they would make it easier for people to get a GP appointment, and NHS Scotland will provide an extra 150,000 appointments. Opposition parties have accused the Scottish Government of incompetence. Our health correspondent Lisa Summers explains what was announced.
The First Minister chose the National Robotarium to give his speech on the future of the NHS, outlining the importance of innovation and technology. He also said that they would be giving more support to GPs and community healthcare, and that they would create additional capacity to tackle the waiting times backlog. But the government has made similar promises before. They said that they would increase the number of GPs by 800, but now we have fewer GPs than we had a decade ago. They also pulled funding from national treatment centres that were supposed to create extra capacity. And they said that they would end the longest waits for patients, but we still have thousands of people waiting over a year for a first appointment with an NHS specialist. So I asked the First Minister why we should believe that these plans would be any different.
The range of measures are not, they're not in any way fragmented. They are part of a complete package of measures, which are about, in some respects, reducing demand because of earlier intervention and by better support to individuals. In other respects, they are about increasing capacity and productivity and by changing the way in which hospital services are organised and structured.
People here who represent the likes of nurses, pharmacists, doctors certainly welcomed the sentiment of what the First Minister was saying, but they say they want to see more detail of these plans. Meanwhile, opposition parties have accused the government of 18 years of failing to manage the NHS.
Lisa Summers there. So pledge to make it easier to see your GP. Well, let's ask a GP about exactly that. Dr John Montgomery is with us now. Dr Montgomery, thanks for joining us in the studio. I'm going to guess that you would welcome any announcement that says more resources, more capacity, all of these positive things. Did you hear enough today that made you think that that would actually be a reality?
I think the first thing is the fact that there is this move towards moving resources into general practice preferentially. 15 years ago, general practice took up something like 10% of the budget. It's now down to something like 6.5% of the budget. So it's no wonder that patients are having significant problems in accessing us because there aren't enough of us. So we welcome the principle, but absolutely the detail is what happens next.
So what could happen next? What will this mean? Because people will just be wondering, how is it going to make it easier for me to get a doctor's appointment? What will it mean for them?
Well, I think a practical solution. We produce, and I'll use my own example in South Glasgow. Now, we train something like 25 new GPs, newly qualified GPs, every year in South Glasgow. Now, if the government was to produce the resource into South Glasgow to allow those 25 newly qualified GPs to move into local practices, we could improve access overnight. And more importantly, if we could preferentially put these young GPs into areas of deprivation where the need is greatest, this is where the illness is, it would make a significant difference.
If this is a long-term plan, which you would understand a lot of these things are not going to happen overnight, as a GP, what needs to happen very quickly? What could happen in the short term?
Well, I think in the short term, as I was alluding to, Amy, the young GPs, when they're finished training, they're not ready to go into general practice. They need to go into practices, be mentored for a year to give them the experience and the expertise to run a practice. And that's something that could be done really very, very quickly within a matter of 1 or 2 years. I think we're missing a trick here. We're just producing these newly qualified GPs. They're not ready to go into practice. They're not ready to serve the populations that need to be served. And that's something that could be done very quickly.
Well, Dr Montgomery, I know you're going to stick with us because there's actually something else that we want to talk to you about, because it's a story that, as a parent, I'm sure it's not always straightforward, is it, with your children perhaps and their diet. And a study carried out by Edinburgh University on children's diets across Scotland has found that they're eating too much salt and saturated fats. At the same time, children are not eating enough fruit and vegetables. So the results have been called worrying. What are parents thinking of this? We sent Ben Phillip to a trampoline park in Aberdeen to find out.
The study found most children in Scotland are eating too much sugary, high-calorie foods and not enough fruits and vegetables. Those behind this study described it as extremely concerning but not surprising and called for action to improve the health of young people. So how do parents here in Aberdeen feel about the situation?
I wouldn't say it's very surprising. You go to places like soft plays or fun fairs and stuff like that, and sometimes they don't have the most healthiest of selections. And also the cost of fruit and veg in shops is astronomical. You pick up a pack of strawberries, it's like £3 for a teeny tiny punnet.
I think in Scotland we've got so many sort of pockets of deprivation, and that's really linked into the time that you've got available to prepare fresh foods, the resources you've got to buy it.
And do you eat your fruit and vegetables?
Do you eat fruit and vegetables?
Not much.
What's your favourite food?
Mango and pear.
That's actually very healthy though. Do you like your fruit and vegetables?
Yeah.
She eats lots of fruit and vegetables actually, but
Carrots are my favourite.
No matter how much you try to budget and stuff, it's just when you do your food shop, 90% of it is your fruit veg costs and your healthy eating stuff.
So maybe try and reduce those costs.
Yeah, try and get the cost down to be able to eat healthy all the time.
I think carrots, a lot of people's favourite. Dr Montgomery's still with us. So talk to us then about what you're seeing at your practice, Dr Montgomery, because, in terms of young people coming in and just how their diets are now.
Well, diets are unfortunately generally quite poor, again, particularly in areas of deprivation. We're now starting to see, tragically, children of 11, 12 being diagnosed with the older form of diabetes, the form of diabetes that is directly related to obesity, something that I never saw 30 years ago. We're seeing children being brought in by the parents because they're so overweight that they're embarrassed to take their clothes off to take part in PE. And this is something that we never saw 30 years ago.
So what do you do in terms of, how do you have a conversation with a parent without it coming across like you're blaming them in some way? How do you have that type of quite difficult conversation with a parent?
It is a very difficult and a very sensitive consultation that you have to have, but it's also an opportunity to bring about change. When you're telling a parent that their child has developed diabetes, the older form of diabetes, it's a moment where the idea is to really look at lifestyle changes, really look at the diet, and in these extreme cases refer for specialist dietetic advice. And you can see that the changes can be transformative in these children.
As you see, you've seen things change in just the time that you've spent as a GP. What has changed? Is it that people's lives are busier, or the cost of food as well must come into it a lot?
There's a number of factors. I think, unfortunately, that children tend to have a more sedentary lifestyle. It's old-fashioned, but how often do you see children kicking a ball in the street anymore? And of course, child poverty is a real issue now. I thought it was quite damning when some years ago the World Health Organization actually visited Scotland to produce a report on the levels of child poverty that we have in the country. And of course that directly impacts on nutrition.
Yeah, so many different factors at play here. Dr John Montgomery, thanks very much for joining us in the studio tonight. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, have you heard just the two stories that we're talking to Dr John Montgomery about there? Maybe have an opinion on either of them. You can contact us here at the programme. Our email address is news7@bbc.co.uk. Thanks very much for joining us here on tonight's News at 7. We have plenty more still to come for you in the programme, including 3 days on from Storm Eowyn, we ask one insurance expert what our rights are when it comes to making a claim.
Low pressure to start the week, but as we head through towards mid to late week, some sunshine and dry conditions. I'll have a full forecast later.
A truly shocking case now, and 7 members of one of Scotland's biggest child sex abuse rings have been given lifelong sentences and warned they may never be released. Ian Owens, Elaine Lannery, Leslie Williams, Paul Brannan, Scott Forbes, Barry Watson and John Clark were jailed for 93 years between them. During the sentencing, George Lord Beckett said it was amongst the worst examples of human behaviour.
This court is used to hearing some of the worst examples of human behaviour, but such depravity as you displayed against young children is beyond my experience. Children showed extraordinary fortitude, strength and stamina, undergoing months and years of interviews as investigators struggled to discover and comprehend the full extent of what you had done to them. You will only be released from prison if the parole board considers that it is no longer necessary for the protection of the public that you remain in prison.
Well, Dr Andrew Tickell is a law lecturer at Glasgow Caledonian University and is with us now. Andrew, thanks very much for joining us in the studio. So the 7 members of this gang, they were given lifelong restriction orders on top of their sentences. Can you just explain to people watching what exactly those are?
Sure. We're more used to life sentences in the context of murder, but this is basically what orders for lifelong restriction are. They are life sentences. So what the judge has to do is ask themselves, are they necessary for the protection of the public if crimes like these ones disclose sexual violence or physical violence? And if that happens, then they have to take into account different things. They have to look at the risks. Are these people high risk, medium risk or low risk of reoffending? So the judge gets the benefit of psychological interviews that take place with these people to determine what kind of risk they represent for the public. And what they have to do is set a minimum term that will be spent in prison. So the kind of numbers we're seeing today, which range from 8 years up to 20 years, the punishment part, as they're called in law, is the minimum that these people will spend in custody, and there's no guarantee that they will ever be released. That's a matter for the parole board.
If they were to be released, what kind of restrictions would then be imposed after that?
Well, it would depend in context. That's a matter for the parole board, not this judge, and it really will be 20 years down the line or 8 years down the line at a minimum. So really you'd look at what risk do they now present 20 or 8 years on for the public. And the parole board do this all the time. They do it in cases involving people convicted of murder and in cases like this. We know that there's around about 20 or so of these lifelong restriction orders that are made every single year, usually in cases not like this. This is a case of profound depravity, but cases involving violence, sexual violence, complicated offending short of homicide. So the parole board has a job to ask, looking at that person 8 years on or up to 20 years on, are you still a risk to the public? If the answer is yes, these people will not be released. If the answer is that they're no longer a risk to the public, then they can be released, but they are still serving that lifelong sentence. So they're still on licence, and that will involve conditions such as monitoring them, engaging with officers in order to ensure they're not committing further offences. So they can be tailored to individuals, but those are the kind of standard things you'd expect in a licence in a case like this.
As you say, around 20 each year handed out. So this isn't something that is common. So it's reserved for the most serious of cases.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. So in murder cases, judges must impose a life sentence. If you're convicted of murder, they don't have any option. But short of that, in cases of serious violence, for example, they could consider giving someone a fixed term sentence called a determinative sentence. And that may be 8 years, and you're released after that 8-year term. What these sentences are about is about risk. Judges can only impose them if they are persuaded that the people involved pose a risk of serious harm to the public. So you're looking at, are they likely to reoffend? Are they likely to pose a threat to young people, to adults who fall within their orbit if they're out and about in society after being released? So it really is looking forward and asking, what are these people's underlying psychology? Why did they commit the crimes that they were accused of and convicted of in this case? And are they likely to be amenable to reform and change if they're subject to interventions by the justice system? And so an assessment is made by experts about whether they're high risk, medium risk or low. And that was one of the controversies in this case, about whether these people were at high risk, 2 of them, of offending, or whether they were more medium risk of offending.
Dr. Andrew Tickell, thank you very much for explaining all of that to us tonight. Thank you. And if you have been affected by this story, details of organisations offering information and support with child sexual abuse are available at bbc.co.uk/actionline, or you can call for free at any time to hear recorded information on 0800 077 077. Let's get a roundup of the stories making the BBC News app in Scotland today then, shall we? A police officer has been seriously injured during the pursuit of an alleged stolen vehicle in the Highlands. It happened yesterday evening. 2 men have been arrested and charged. Staff at Scottish Water are voting on whether to take industrial action after pay talks collapsed. The Unite Trade Union says the company had failed to make a fair and decent pay offer. Councillors have been advised to oppose a battery storage scheme in a rural corner of the Borders. If agreed, the plan near the Eccles substation could power more than 30,000 homes. And one of Scotland's busiest commuter train routes has closed for 16 weeks. No trains at all will run between East Kilbride and Glasgow Central until the 18th of May. For more information on all of these stories, you can scan the QR code on screen now. It'll take you straight to the BBC Scotland News app, where there is more for you, including an article about the man who used dating apps to scam women out of thousands of pounds. Biodegradable waste generated in Uist and Barra could soon be converted into an alternative source of fuel as things stand, such as refuse is transported almost 100 miles away by road and ferry, destined for landfill in Stornoway. But a ban that's due to come into force in 2026 has convinced the local authority to explore other options. Our reporter Alistair McLennan has more for us.
Over land and sea, non-recyclable waste from Uist and Barra makes its way to Stornoway for landfill. By the end of the year, though, through new technology, it's hoped that waste can be turned into a solid recovered fuel. Currently, all refuse from Uist and Benbecula is sent here to this machine, where it's then packed into the back of a lorry and sent north to Stornoway for landfill. With the new technology, though, the rubbish will go in, fuel will come out, and the council say that that will be a benefit to them and to the environment.
With the landfill ban coming in 2026, we've been able to look at solutions to what we're going to do in the Western Isles. Obviously, we don't want to be paying fines for putting a landfill in, so we hope to be well up and running before the 2026 ban.
Cornyn and Newlanshire are due to be the first local authority in the UK to do this, aiming to process up to 10 tonnes a day in the new machine.
That shredded waste goes into that big container, and the bugs and the stimulant are added. It gets really warm in there, the bugs eat all the organic material, and then it literally works its way through that container, out the other side, and what comes out is dry and fluffy, and as I said, highly calorific, which has a lot of energy.
Environmental group Friends of the Earth Scotland have raised concern at the plans, saying that this decision will lock the Western Isles into a system which produces harmful pollution and unnecessary climate-wrecking emissions. They also said there should be more central guidance from the Scottish Government on how councils like the Western Isles can increase reuse and recycling instead. With plans to have the technology operational by the end of the year, it'll soon be seen how much of a benefit it will be to the council, the community and to the environment. Alistair McLennan, reporting Scotland, Benbecula.
Still to come, we will look at what to do if you suffered damage from Storm Éowyn at the weekend, and Chris will have the forecast with hopefully some better weather around the corner for us. But first of all, it is sport with Lewis. And Lewis, often you see managerial departures coming, but I don't think many would have expected the news from Fir Park today.
Absolutely not, Amy. No, it's come as a bit of a surprise indeed. Hello there. Motherwell are searching for a new manager. That's after Stuart Kettlewell tendered his resignation, which the Fir Park club say they very reluctantly accepted. A statement from the Steelman adds that Kettlewell cited personal abuse he'd received during the recent 4-game winless run as the reason behind his decision, because that abuse was now affecting his family. He'd been in charge since February 2023, and Motherwell are currently 5th in the Premiership. Elsewhere, Celtic fans will soon be seeing an old favourite back playing in the green and white hoops after Portuguese winger Jota officially rejoined the Parkhead club from French side Rennes for a fee reported to be around £10 million. The 25-year-old has signed a 5.5-year deal. He had previously left Celtic to join Saudi Arabia's Al Ittihad in 2023 for £25 million and then moved to France's top flight last summer. Jota has already clocked up 28 goals in 83 Celtic appearances. Meanwhile, definitely going in the other direction to Rennes for a similar 10 million fee is Kyogo Furuhashi. The Japanese striker brings to an end 3.5 years at Celtic, during which he scored 85 goals. Now, what a Sunday it was for Scottish women's basketball team, the Caledonia Gladiators, who won their first ever title in the shape of the Super League basketball trophy. They had to work hard for it, narrowly beating English side Auckland Wolves 61-59 in a dramatic finish. I caught up with a couple of the players earlier.
Honestly, it's been quite surreal. It's like a dream. In the run-up, it was like kind of quiet confidence, business as usual. We went and done the job yesterday, and now it's like, wow, we actually did that.
Yeah, it must be surreal, Rob, and particularly the manner in which it all played out. I mean, a finely tight game against Auckland Wolves. How did you feel in the moment and then when you got over the line?
In the moment, the fourth quarter, I turned dead on the bench at one point. I was like, I'm feeling quite sick now. Well, we managed to do this. And after, just like complete euphoria. I think everyone was so happy that we'd got over the line and put in such a good performance. So yeah, absolutely buzzing.
We were ready for it. You know, we knew that team wasn't going to back down, and they've got some big talented players that make big shots and big moments. So we were kind of ready for it. And Shan just kept saying, you know, they're going to come at us, roll with it. We keep doing our thing. And I think that showed kind of down the stretch. I mean, it was nerve-wracking. It went down to the very final shot. But again, that's what a final's all about, and that's what makes players.
The celebrations must have been quite something after, were they, Rob?
Oh yeah, we were all jumping all over the place. It was amazing, and I think just the bus back up the road was exactly the same, just happy, everyone was so excited.
When we got back up to East Kilbride, they were waiting on us again, so it was really special, you know, and they're very much appreciated. It makes a big difference.
Lots of young girls in the crowd as well, I'm sure. What was that like for them, do you think? Could this be a significant moment for the game, do you think, as a whole in Scotland?
We're definitely hoping so. If you see it, you can be it, and I think that's what we're all trying to do. So it's been amazing to have young girls through the door at East Kilbride, and also some travelling down to the final, so definitely hoping that's where the future's going.
But what about for the team as well, Erin? This has put you guys right on the map for sure.
You know, just to grow what we've started here, this basketball culture, this excitement around the sport, getting young people involved. When I was a young person, there wasn't a professional team in Scotland, and you had to go to England or further afield, and to have a professional sport like right on our professional team right on our doorstep, I think that's amazing for young people. Just like Robin said, you can see it, you can be it. You know, it brings communities together, whether you're a fan, whether you're someone who takes pictures, whether you know you volunteer and come to the game days. It's just there's so much opportunities and good things that the sport in general brings. So I think for us in the long term, it's just to grow that culture and that family.
And then in the short term, obviously you guys can celebrate this, but how long can you celebrate it for, Robin? What's in the immediate short-term future?
Got a couple of days off, and then we'll have to regroup. We have a lot of league play left. Our season playoffs doesn't start till May, so still a few months ahead to build and keep progressing. So yeah, busy time. A couple of days to relax, enjoy it, and then back to work.
Busy time indeed, eh? Straight back into work.
I just love that they took time out, Erin and Robin, taking time out of the celebrations to come and talk to you, Lewis.
Well, you sound surprised.
I know. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about the story that had us all talking about this last week anyway. Storm Eowyn caused so much damage across the country on Friday, didn't it? And thousands are still without electricity. The storm's peak hurricane force winds caused more than 280,000 homes to lose power across Scotland. And here is just how some of you were affected. Thanks for getting in touch. Val told us I had a power cut from midday on Friday until about 4 p.m. on Saturday. I've never been so scared. Someone else got in contact to say my parents are in rural Dalry and in their late 70s. They still have no power and it's been off since Friday, completely isolated and no realistic indication as to when they will be back on. So what can you do if you've been affected? Has your roof been damaged perhaps? Maybe it was your car? Well, Scott Dixon is a consumer affairs expert and says it's about trying to be organised.
You need to contact your insurer as soon as possible. Don't delay, because they're going to be inundated with inquiries and claims. And the next stage from that will be a loss adjuster being sent out to your property to gauge the damage and to ascertain if you have a legitimate claim. So, and what you need to bear in mind is the loss adjuster is working for the insurer, and they are there to mitigate the cost of claims. And negligence and wear and tear are the most popular excuses to reject all claims. So bear that in mind. And what they're going to ask for is, when was the gutters last cleaned? And when was the roof last checked? Gather your evidence of damage as well. Take photos, take videos, and create an inventory as well, detailing what's being damaged and estimated costs. If an insurer relies on a spurious claim to reject, say just a weird excuse, say, please point me to that specific paragraph in the terms and conditions of the policy that says you can reject my claim for that reason. And it's a good tactic to have.
Storm Eo, when it was described as a once-in-a-generation weather event, and it was very severe, as we did see on Friday, we don't want to think that there will be a next time, but inevitably I'm sure there will be more severe storms that we will see. Are there things that people can do before there is another event like that? Things that you think they should do before there's a next time?
Yeah, well, there will be a next time. There's no denying it. And storms are becoming more frequent. And again, that can't be disputed. But what I would say is, at either side of the window, get your gutters checked and cleaned and get your roof inspected, because prevention is better than cure. And as I say, be prepared to have your claim rejected, because insurers, they deploy loss adjusters to mitigate and reject claims. They're not working on your behalf. And as I say, stick to your guns. And if it's not right, it's worth the fight. Don't be fobbed off. And as I say, the Financial Ombudsman Service is there if all else fails. And they will review your case and gauge it on both sides to see if your claim can be upheld.
Scott Dixon chatting to me earlier. Well, Chris is here with the weather. Chris, please tell me things are calming down this week.
They are calming down this week, Amy, yes, thank goodness. Thanks very much indeed. Actually, there's been a storm, or the remnants of a storm, hanging around today, Storm Erminia. It's brought some outbreaks of rain, pretty wet end of the day there in Glasgow from one of our weather watchers. And at times it was a bit misty and murky across the northeast. Neve sending that picture to us from Banchory. There's always someone that wants to go in the water as well, isn't there? But hopefully calming down through the course of this week. Let's take a look at what is happening, because on the pressure sequence, you can see we've got the area of low pressure that we've seen today swirling around for a few days to come, actually. But as we head through towards Thursday and then indeed Friday, it clears away and this ridge of high pressure moves in, bringing us something drier and brighter with some wintry sunshine. But first thing tomorrow, it's a fairly cloudy start. There'll be some low cloud around, temperatures around 3 or 4 Celsius. North of the central lowlands is where we'll see a number of showers to start the day, and those could be wintry across the highest hills and mountains. Quite a windy start in the far north, Caithness, Orkney and Shetland, some gale force conditions across Shetland, but the winds will ease down through the day, and the winds in the northwest tending to ease off as well. So as we head through the course of Tuesday, a bit of a north-south split in the north, fairly frequent showers, further south drier, and with a north wind, that cloud should thin and break at times with a bit of brightness. Wednesday, that low pressure just about pulling away, but it's a slow old process, and that means through the day on Wednesday it's quite cloudy with some outbreaks of showery rain across northern areas, moving their way southwards, wintry across the higher hills and ground, and some sunshine developing in towards the west later on. There we have it. Thursday, that high pressure overhead, it's dry, it's sunny. It's chilly, temperatures around 4 to 7 Celsius and a few showers in Shetland, but some sunshine and blue sky, not bad at all. And then looking ahead towards the end of the week, that high pressure ridge just about holding on. However, weather fronts begin to move in again once again from the Atlantic, bringing some cloud and rain as we head through towards Saturday and Sunday. So windows of opportunity, really. You can see on Friday we've still got some sunshine. There'll be a bit of overnight rain that will clear, and temperatures 7 to 9 Celsius. Then looking towards the weekend, we see those weather fronts arrive. But crucially, the wind direction is coming in from the south, so not feeling too chilly or anything like that. In fact, we could see temperatures in Stornoway up to around 10 degrees, but clouding over with rain moving in from the west through the day. So you can see on the outlook there, Thursday, the best day of the week, some sunshine and blue sky. That's the forecast, Amy.
Thanks, Chris. I'll be holding on to the words dry and sunny that you said there. Thanks very much. And thanks for your company as well. I'll be back tomorrow when we will be finding out how a Celtic Connections dementia-friendly concert is giving those with the condition a more relaxed experience. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.